Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats at ICC. I'm here to analyze the game played in the Team 4545 League, team event number 60. This was played in the 8th round, which is the first round of the playoffs, and it's a pretty instructive game for one of the reasons I've been preaching for a long time. The number one reason players lose games is because they move too quickly, and that's exactly what White does here. I'm just going to skip forward. Look at the time, 45 minutes to start. Now, when we go all the way to the end, you can see White's clearly losing this position, but look at his clock. 70 minutes on his clock. That means he's gained 25 minutes. Now, he's played 52 moves. He's gained 39 minutes on his clock. 39 plus 45 is what? 84 minutes? He spent basically 15 minutes on this game. Having been a tournament veteran since before Bobby Fischer won the World Championship, I can tell you right now that nobody played this quick. The internet has changed chess, and it's changed it for the worse in a lot of respects. People are playing too quick. This is not how you play a long game. 45-45 gives you an E time of 75 minutes for the game. The average game lasting 40-minute moves. If you make 40 moves in that allotted time, 75 minutes elapsed, and you still have 45 seconds to play every move without losing on time. Should be ample time, thinking time to play a decent game. Okay. Normal time controls of weekend events, the big money events, are like 40 moves in 2 hours, or take the FIDE time control, 40 moves in 90 minutes. Then a sudden death in an hour, and you get a 30-second increment every move, and I think even a 5-second delay. The title players that you see playing on all these servers, ICC, anywhere else, they didn't get their title playing a quick game of chess. Okay, they didn't. They got their title playing a long 5-hour games and longer. That's how they got it. We're supposed to be learning from these people if we want to play better. Now, the other reason I'm disappointed with people playing this fast is I've mentioned this so many times on all the videos I've made. Well, not on all of them, but a number of videos I make. Matter of fact, I will refuse to make a Game of the Week video if somebody plays too quick themselves, because I'm going to be yelling at you at basically every move. So, not to take anything away from Black, I think Black played a very nice game here, and we'll get to that when we see it. But White certainly made the opportunities available for Black because he just wasn't taking his time. And the other thing too, this is a team event. You have 3 teammates plus maybe a couple of alternates. You're trying to help the team, okay, as well as yourself. I mean, if you win your division, you get up to a 2-month extension on your ICC membership, and it costs money to do this. So this is a nice bonus. And again, you're trying to play long games. If you want to play a 15-minute game, I have a simple solution. Don't waste your time in Team 4545 League, okay? Because there you have to go through a player negotiation to find a time that your opponent can play. Then both of you show up, you play your game. If you want to play a 15-minute game, just type 15 in the console if you're using Blitzen, and very quickly a 15-minute game will start in the 15-minute pool, and you can play all you want. You won't have to wait long for a game, I promise you. And your games will last no longer than a half an hour, and you can find out what your skill level at 15-minute is. Okay, so without further ado, let's get on to the game. And I have a list here. Let me just show it here. I'll bring it across here. Let me just bring it onto the screen. Okay. This is the time they spent per move. If you look down here at move 13, White spent a minute and 21 on that, and usually just spending seconds. Occasionally there's close to 30 seconds. There's a 121, and 0 and 2 minutes. 2 seconds, 1 second. I guess he's using the pre-move key. Fortunately, Black is taking his time in several cases and finding some good moves, but this is not how you play chess on a long time control game. Okay, so let me bring this back over to the side out of the screen window. The game starts out pretty reasonable. I don't know where Book ends. Bishop D2 is kind of a rare move, but it shouldn't cause White any problems, except that bishop is going to be a bad piece. It doesn't get active. And we'll see what White's remedy for that is in a little bit, how to handle that dark squared bishop. Um, and both sides are developing their pieces, and the game looks pretty reasonable. And here's the move White spent some time on, a minute and 19 seconds. Let me bring that back up. We'll take a look here. A minute and 19 seconds on Bishop D3, or no, a minute and 21 seconds. And Black took a minute and 13 on his reply. But here's the important thing to look at too. Look at the time now. White's gained 6 minutes on his clock. Okay, Black has lost 8 minutes, so he spent 8 minutes plus his increment. So Black did take his time on this move. Now, before I show you White's next move, maybe you've already seen it on the score sheet, but what would you play here? Okay, you've just spent a minute and 21 seconds on the move, and probably had to anticipate C4 coming. Where do you put the bishop? You go F5, safe squares are F5, C2, B1, and E2. I don't really like F5 that much. The move I like the best is Bishop B1. It keeps an eye on that long diagonal. It's a nice active bishop. You've gotten the rook developed outside of it, okay? But White doesn't play this move. He plays a different move, and let's compare the two, okay? He plays Bishop E2. Now, objectively, it's not a bad move, but look at White's setup here. It's not all that formidable. White has no activity for his pieces. His light squared bishop can't move at all. His dark squared bishop can only go to E1. His knight on C3 doesn't control a lot. It can go to A2, okay, and B1. And where's it going from B1? Back to C3. The rooks have no open files. The queen has a diagonal to go to, but where's it going next? Go to A4. Where's it going? Go to C2. Well, needed a bishop behind it on B1. So White really has no mobility here. Black, on the other hand, can prepare a knight getting into E4, can put a rook on the E file, can advance his F pawn after he gets his knight into F4 or E4, and then maybe consider launching a kingside pawn storm, because White basically has no freedom. So, but Bishop B1, at least it maintains a possibility at some point maybe of getting Queen C2 in, okay? You want to get Queen C2 in because that's a battery. That's pointed at H7. Now, White's not going to win a game by checkmate on H7. He's not. And Black can reinforce with, can get a knight into E4 and shut that diagonal down. And now he's ready to play F5 maybe, or knight 7. I missed with the arrow I tried to draw. Get that up to F5. There we go. Okay. But at the same time, White can probably evict that diagonal, or open that diagonal. Let's see. Here's how we do it. Here. Oh, wait. We got to move the knight first. Sorry. Okay. Knight E1. Okay. Let's keep it closed. Since White's trying to open it, let's try to keep it closed. Now let's just go with F3. Okay. Now we're trying to open it up. It would be bad for Black to take, possibly, because now you're opening up the diagonal. Maybe White can get E4 in and open this diagonal up again. And he'd love to get E4 in because that'll activate this bishop. Or maybe White can do a clearance type sacrifice of D5, and then the bishop on D2, which had no scope, would suddenly have a range. Also, the bishop on B1, it might go to A2. Maybe we can open up this diagonal at some point. I'm not drawing the arrow correctly. Maybe we could open up this diagonal with a timely B3. White would have options here. He doesn't have much. Most of his pieces are on the back rank. But then Black's are too. And it's a game. Maybe Black can get somewhere with Queen H4, trying to get Queen G3 in. Well, we can always, if we have to shut that diagonal down, we can shut it down. And maybe Black can play to open it up. It just seems like White had more options available at his disposal. But when he just brings the bishop back to E2, he kind of took that away. And let's bring up the time again. I think he spent 19 seconds on that move. And it doesn't really have much hope after this. Let's see, bishop e2 on, 19 seconds. And, he had all that time on his clock. He could have spent 10 minutes on that and thought about, even if he only thought of half of the stuff I mentioned here, he probably would have seen bishop b1, gave him a better chance. Okay, so anyway, continuing on. Now, white doesn't have much scope for his pieces, so he's trying to find some way to get some mobility. Now, the drawback with taking here is, well, it's not really a drawback. At some point, he could do this positional sack, but the drawback of doing this too is that if white doesn't push d5, black's going to grab that square as an outpost, and I think it's a pretty good post. Even if you put the bishop there, it's okay. Just to stop the white idea of maybe a positional pawn sacrifice right in its tracks. Okay, white may have a break with b3 at some point even, but white doesn't go this way. He had to get the knight to safety, but here white creates a weakness, and let's bring up his time here. Bishop b4 was played after 10 seconds of thought. Well, why would you want to make a move that weakens your pawn structure? I mean, you want to jettison that bishop, but what if white pushed this pawn? Okay, let's look at this for a second. Bang! We've got a discovery. We're attacking the bishop, and behind that's another bishop. I don't think black can take this pawn. Let's see, because if he plays knight f6, bang, bishop takes, and the bishop on d5 falls. So how else can he protect himself? Retreat the bishop. Then on d5, the bishop on d6 falls, right? Okay, so black can't accept that pawn. He can try to win it, but you see, that's the whole point. White's trying to activate his pieces here. Now bishop here, okay. Now, for the pawn sacrificed, for what it's worth, white's got some open lines here, okay. Queen d4 threatens mate, but it's going to probably be met by knight takes c3, but we can go ahead and park the bishop on d4. Now look at its scope. Okay, if black wants to eliminate that bishop, it's going to take him a couple of moves to do it. He's going to have to put a rook on e8 or a rook on c8 with the idea of, or bring the queen up to one of these squares, for instance, with the idea of getting a bishop to c5. That takes a couple moves. White's got time to think of some moves too. And I'm not saying what they are right now, but how can you find those things in 10 seconds? The answer is you can't, okay? If you're a super grandmaster, you can do it, but I'm sorry, you're not, I'm not, and most of the people watching this video aren't. But common sense says take your time and find a plan. So this is a positional pawn sacrifice that certainly would have been better for white than what he did, okay? And who knows what would happen here. But it's certainly interesting chess. And even if you reject this for some reason, even if it's the wrong reason, if you're thinking about your game, you're learning how to analyze. You're learning how to evaluate a position. Your game will improve as you continue to play better players. Okay. So instead, white uncorks bishop b4 very quickly. And let me bring the score up so I can see the moves. Black takes 5 minutes and decides, I believe, on the correct course. Give white a weakness on b4. Okay. Now that's a pawn that can be attacked. Like, for instance, one thing I can see right now, queen e7, knight b8. Come on, knight, or arrow, and then knight c6. How does white defend that pawn? Good question, huh? You're going to have to get a knight to c2. How does it get there? Well, it's got to get there by way of e1, and I don't think that's going to happen. We have to move the rook to E1, then the knight can get to F1, then get to D2, then it can get to B1, then it can get to A3, and finally to C2. And we still haven't protected the pawn with our queen. So, it's just asking for trouble. Let's see what black does. Okay, black just develops his rook. Okay, that's a good place for it. And now here's a peculiar thing. White just seems to be struggling for a plan. Maybe he's trying to get rid of that knight. Maybe he thinks that it's going to do just what I said it should do. But here's the funny thing. I want to show a good way to explain this. Okay. What's going to happen in effect from this position is White's going to say to black, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you two moves. It's my move, but I'm going to give you two moves as long as one of them is F5. Okay, watch what I mean. Now, what difference has White's position changed in two moves? It hasn't. But black has gotten both F5 and knight F6 in. And let me just point my arrow at the position here. I'll just flick this. Watch how the black position changed. See? The knight and the pawn advanced. Look how the white position changed. It didn't. And I see this happen in a lot of games. I was actually able to do it recently myself, but in doing it was paramount in creating a pawn weakness in my opponent's position. I needed to get control of a square away and get a hole. Induced a pawn to advance. I attacked put a bishop on a square, something like G4, attacking something this, inducing a pawn to come up to F5. In effect, I did this, but it was with pure positional reasoning behind it. It created a weakness in my opponent's position. But usually you can ask yourself, if this happens to you, you've done something wrong. And White's probably it's my version of hope chess. Dan Heisman has his version of hope chess. I have mine. Mine is you play this move and hope your opponent lets you take his knight. Okay, you're hoping for the best, and instead he sees what you're up to and he plays a good move. So anyway, let's go forward. Let's see why isn't it going forward? Why isn't anything moving here? Maybe because I've got the arrow in the wrong place. Okay, let me go back. There we go. Okay. Now this move seems to cause some trouble for White, but I'm going to give White credit here. And here's the credit I'm going to give him. When he played G4, he spent 1 minute and 21 seconds. Okay. At least he took his time, but look at the time too. When he plays G4, let's back it up. White has an advantage of 5-2 on the clock. White could take 30 minutes on this move and still be ahead on time. Okay, 30 minutes, he could probably have found a better move than G4. Now, what would a better move be? Well, not sure. That knight's going to D5. You're probably going to drop the pawn on B4. I don't see exactly how to hold it. Okay. But then again, you're the one that allowed that to happen by playing bishop B4. Again, the plan of rook E1 is one move, knight F1, 2, to D2, 3, to B1, 4, to A3, 5, to C2, 6, and queen D2, 7, just to defend that pawn. It ain't going to happen. You're going to lose that pawn. So the thing I would think of doing is trying to open up some lines somewhere, anywhere, and maybe that's where we get G4. I guess trying to open up lines on the queen side, B3 might be possible. Yeah, let's look at B3. See if B3. Okay, first off, if pawn takes, you develop the queen with check. Yeah, black can kick you out, but that unprotects A6. And I'm not saying white has a great position here, but hey, maybe you're going to get some defense for that pawn on B4 quicker than what I suggested, okay? So let's try B3. So he doesn't have to take. Well, he can shove by. Yeah, he certainly could shove by. But now maybe that pawn could be a target. I don't know. Could it? Uh, Knight goes to F1. We got to get those. Whoops. Got to get that rook out of there and the bishop. You'll see what I'm doing here. Knight goes to F1 is one move. To G3 is two moves. To E2 is three moves. Now it's attacking the pawn, but we have to get the rook out of the way first, and the bishop out of the way for this to happen. Black's got five moves to try to save things. Yeah, we're probably going to lose the pawn on B4, but what can we do about it? Really, there's not much. There's not much at all to be done. Yeah, it's hard to find quite a plan here, but he's made this weakness in his position. It's on him. So anyway, G4. At least he's trying to open up some lines somewhere. Maybe he can generate an attack. There goes the pawn on B4, just like it was expected. Now it's kind of dangerous to put the king on the same diagonal as the dark squared bishop. And look at that knight entrenched. Ouch. Something has definitely gone wrong if that knight's in that position. And black is just improving the position of his pieces. Black's taking his time and finding good moves. White's playing blitz chess and has a horrible position. Now that covers F2, so knight F2 check is not possible, but en passant is. And exchanges can only help black because he's up a clear pawn. And white doesn't really have any play. He's got some center pass pawns, but they're weak. And black has an outside pawn majority on both sides of the board. Now pinning the knight, that's good. Breaking the pin, threatening a pawn. White has to lose another pawn back. So black just starts liquidating, and suddenly black has a winning game. He's been winning for a while, but now it's pretty clear. 5 pawns to 3. All white's pawns are isolated. And there's not too much more to the game now. But white was certainly his worst enemy here by playing blitz chess. Now he's down 4 pawns to 1. And, no matter how you slice it, there's no hope here. Everything's just too strong for black. It does white no good to run his king over to D2 and capture the pawn because black will win with his remaining pawns. White couldn't. Well, let's see. Could white grab that pawn? I was wondering about that first time I run through it. Oh no, you're going to make a queen here. Well, rook takes. Rook. You don't have time to check and then take the queen. Rook can't do two duties. If you take the queen, you get mated. So, it's just basically hopeless here. Just checking the king right over to aid the pawn, and no matter what white does, black is going to queen that pawn. You can see, for instance, king here, and queening next. You get to give up your rook for it, and I'm sure black knows how to mate with a king and rook versus a king. It's not difficult at all. And look, we got him cut off already. Look at that. The rest is easy. Okay, so got to take your time if you're going to play long games. You did a good job of taking your time, Stiltzkin. You played a very nice game. You can only play against what your opponent plays, or the moves your opponent gives you, and he weakened his position and didn't challenge you. And you found the right moves. And this will happen to you if you don't take your time. Okay. So anyway, I'll get this uploaded. Thank you. There's a couple more I think coming. I'll get to those as quickly as I possibly can, and thanks so much for your time. Take care.